Are you sitting in a season right now where it feels like God has completely gone silent? You look around, you see closed doors, and through the tears, your heart is whispering, Lord, are you finished with me yet? Have you forgotten I'm here? If you are carrying that heavy, lonely ache today, please stop scrolling for just a moment. Jesus sees you in this quiet space. He loves you deeply, and He is holding your story close to His heart. So, my dear friend, Crickett Keeth, she knows exactly what it feels like to wrestle with that silence. And she's here to share how Jesus met her in a season of unexpected rest to remind her that His love never finishes with us. Cricket, thank you for joining me. And, I just need to ask you, when those familiar doors closed, did your heart feel deeply forgotten?
Yes, I did. After I retired and thought I was moving into a lot of ministry opportunities that God had already opened the doors for, and then I retired and everything shut. I was like, God, what is going on? Where are you in this? I mean, have you put me on the shelf? I mean, are you done with me? But, he kept reminding me, no, I'm not done. And I had to just wait on him. I mean, every day I'd go, God, I have to believe that you're working. I can't see what you're doing, but I have to believe that you're working somehow. And it went on several months. And I'd shared this with you that finally, after several months, God just pointed out to me, Cricket, you've been busy all your life. You've had jobs that you have worked from sun up to sun way after sundown. I want you to take a season to rest, to just be with me and not doing for me every minute. Just take time to be with me. And once I realized that, and I didn't hear that like in any audible voice, it was just this thought of rest, take time to be with me. And I'll have to say, Nancy, that was probably one of the most special times of my life. Even though I couldn't see God working, I had to trust that, okay, this is what you want, is just to enjoy this season. And that's what I would encourage everybody, regardless of where God has you. Embrace that season where He has you because He has a purpose for why
So
He
this
has you there.
describe the season that you were in so somebody can really understand what you went through.
Yeah, I actually had 2 seasons similar to this, but the most recent was when I retired. I had been the women's ministry director at my church for 18 years, very active, very involved, and at the end of that, I'd published 2 Bible studies with Moody. I was speaking at women's retreats. Even though I was still working at the church, I was discipling young women's ministry leaders. And so I thought, Lord, I think it's time for me to step aside and hand the baton to a younger woman and then focus on those 3 areas of writing, teaching, and discipling. And so I did. I retired. I stepped aside looking ahead to that season. But like just shared that the things that I struggled with was, God, what do you want me to do now? You've closed doors. The publishing doors closed. There wasn't any openings to publish any new Bible studies. The women that I had been discipling, they had crises come up in their lives, family and health situations, and we couldn't meet for a while. And it was like, okay, you've taken away all my mentoring relationships. And I'm not, teaching. All the open doors for teaching and speaking kind of closed. And so I'm just sitting around my house thinking, God, what do you want me to do in this season of my life? And I was struggling. I knew my purpose was to encourage women to passionately pursue Jesus Christ through writing, teaching, and discipleship. But all 3 of those doors had closed. And that's what I was struggling with was, God, what are you doing? And again, that reminder, that just thought kept coming. Are you finished with me? I mean, no, I know you're not, but it feels like you're finished. And I know there are people out there that feel that, God, what do you have for me to do? Are you done with me? And I will tell you a verse that really encouraged me that I kept going back to was Acts 13:36. And when Paul was talking about David in one of his sermons, and he said, for David, after he had served the purpose of God in his own generation, fell asleep and was buried. And as long as we have breath, God has a purpose for us. And so I had to keep reminding myself, even though there were days that I was crying and going, "Did I mishear you, God? Should I not have retired? Should I just have stayed? I thought it was clear." That was my struggle. God, what do you have for me in this new season? And are you finished with me? And I
Yeah.
think we all go through that, whether it's retirement or whether it's, you're all of a sudden an empty nester or you move to a new job or, there's just all kinds of changes that make us feel, God, what are you doing with me? What do you want me to
Yes.
do?
So many women go through that, and I think immediately I think of Charles Swindoll, who's like in his 90s and he just retired just recently, like within the last year or so. And his purpose was, "Well, hey God, what do you do with me? I'll just follow you." So I love that.
Well, and I think that's where it's important to understand that we have a purpose, and I don't think our purpose changes. I think our purpose changes in the way we carry it out. Like, when I was in my 20s, I was on staff with Crew, sharing the four spiritual laws in college dorms and speaking to sorority houses. But over the years, depending on where God has me, the way I carry out that purpose is going to look different. And whether we're in our 20s, our 50s, our 90s. I'd love to share just a sweet example of that with my mom. My mom lived to be almost 99 years old, and I believe my mom's purpose was encouragement, to encourage others through whether it was writing cards, sitting by somebody's bed in their house when they were sick, or sitting in the hospital with them, or, just taking meals or just praying with them. Mom always wanted to encourage others. And when she was 98 years old here in Memphis in the nursing home, she couldn't speak and couldn't see really, couldn't talk, couldn't hear, couldn't walk, but she was in a wheelchair. And every day they'd wheel her out to the nurse's station. And you might say, well, her purpose was done. God was finished with her. I mean, what could she do in that state? My mom could do one thing really well, and that was smile. And I still have pictures of her sitting in a wheelchair, just sitting there smiling. That's all she could do. But I cannot tell you how many people would come up to me in that nursing home, whether it was other residents or family of the residents or social workers or nurses, and they would say, Cricket, how is it that your mom can sit there and smile with her quality of life so poor? And my answer would be, well, because my mom knows that she's going to see Jesus soon. She has a great relationship with him. Can I share with you about my mom's relationship? Mom couldn't carry out her purpose the way she used to, but she was still sitting there in that wheelchair, just carrying out her purpose of encouraging others, pointing them to Jesus. So that's my encouragement. God is not finished with us till he takes us home. I'm still learning that even in this season when times get quiet. And I'm like, well, God, what do I do now?
He's not finished, but how do you handle the ache when God felt totally silent?
That's a great question because we're going to ache. And I can't tell you how many times I cried as I was spending time in the morning in my quiet time, just going, God, I don't understand. I want to serve you. Why aren't you giving me opportunities? And there was a verse that God really used to just spur me on, and that was one of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 27, and especially verses 13 to 14. I would have despaired unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Take courage. Wait for the Lord. That verse, I would write it out and go, God, I'm really discouraged, but I am going to believe that you have got something around the corner for me, that you're working. And, I learned this also before I took this job in seminary. As the women's ministry director, when I was living back in Dallas, running the heart lung machine, and I wanted to go back into full-time ministry, and my mentor said, go to seminary. And I was like, yes. And I was working in the hospital, going to seminary. My last semester of seminary, I was like, okay, God, show me what's next. And I would interview for jobs, and I'd be up in the top two candidates, but always end up coming in second. And I began to think, God, why did you bring me to seminary if you're just going to leave me sitting in the operating room working the rest of my life? I don't understand. And I was aching at that point. These verses were what really carried me through. And I got very discouraged and just like, God, you've forgotten me. Where are you? But you know what?
Mm.
My very last day of my very last class, I got on a plane that afternoon, flew to Memphis to interview, and ended up getting the job here in Memphis. But God waited until that last class was over. It's like the story of God only shows us corner to corner. He was showing me, "Okay, I want you to go and graduate from seminary." "But God, I wanna know what's around the corner." And he's like, "Nope, you wait." And I got to that corner, and then it's like, "Oh, that's what's next." But this verse encouraged me, "Don't despair, but believe that you're gonna see." And God was working. He was working in me to prepare me for the job he had ahead, but he was working here in Memphis in the church to prepare the women for me coming. And his timing is perfect, Nancy. We can't get ahead of God. I mean, he knows the exact timing that he's going to open doors for us. And our responsibility is to trust him and his faithfulness and obey and just don't get ahead of God. I've done that a few times. I've stepped out and gone, well, God, you're not doing anything. I'm going to
Yeah.
take this open door. And it was
Yeah.
disaster.
What did you say to him in those quiet, heavy moments of being alone?
I would be honest with him and I would tell him, God, I feel like you've forgotten me. I feel like I thought I knew what you had for me. I don't know if I just misread and I doubted. Did I misread what you were telling me to do? Did I just get off track? I mean, I confessed my doubts. God, maybe I didn't hear you right. Maybe I took the wrong path. I was honest with them, but then I'd always come back to no, I know this is what you led me to do. And then I would just say, God, help me. Also, Lord, help me to enjoy the moment and the season you've got me in. And I realized I'd wasted some time after I retired by being so stressed about, well, what's next, God? What am I going to, I need to be doing something. I can't just sit here. And then I realized later, I missed out on that time that he wanted me just to slow down. So, I mean, I was honest with him about how I felt that he had forgotten me, but I kept going to his word. And, last summer, I just took the Psalms and I took one Psalm a day and I would read through it and then I'd journal at least one verse out of every Psalm that I could cling to that day of Lord, yes, this is what I'm gonna trust you, or Lord, this is how I'm feeling, like David did. So I think it's important when we are discouraged and we don't know what God's doing or what our purpose is, or if He's put us on the shelf. I can't tell you how many people have told me that they felt put on the shelf but realized, no, it wasn't that case. But that we just look to his word and remember that he's steadfast, that he has got a purpose and he's written our story and our story fits into his purpose for us.
Mhm.
And one day we're going to understand and go, oh, now I see what you're doing. Now it makes sense.
And it's exciting what he does do, right?
Yes.
How many years did you have that silence for? How long did it go on?
Well, really about a year here in Memphis, and also when I was in seminary, it was about that last year of seminary. I was like, God, where are you? And I even cried once in front of my women's director and said, I just think God has forgotten me. And but about a year, but then he would change things, and usually it was after I kind of came to peace with, okay, God, I'm not going to fight this. I'm just going to live every day to the fullest. But here it was about, I retired in March of 2023. And so the rest of 2023 was quiet. And God had closed all the doors for ministry and publishing and, discipleship. I mean, just there was nothing there. But after that year, when I got into the next year, the new year, things started to open up and people were asking me to mentor them and speaking engagements and getting